Welcome back to Raptor-One.
Raptor-One, Voyagers of the Stars. Chapter 21, The Red Certainty. The silence before. For 3 days, Raptor-One drifted under the constellation's veils, its engines idle except for brief course corrections. They moved as shadows moved, patient, unseen, waiting. Kael spent the time pacing like a caged animal, stripping and rebuilding weapons he'd already taken apart a dozen times. Juno sat in the med berth with the shard cupped against her chest, humming faintly, her breath sinking and unsensing with the bond. Lyra held the ship together with the thin patience of someone listening for cracks in glass that had not yet broken. It was the kind of stillness that felt earned, but stillness in their world never lasted. On the 4th day, the bond went cold. Juno jerked upright. Something's pulling. Kael's hand went instantly to his rifle. Autumn? No, Juno whispered. Not ships. Not fleet. A gate. The shape of the gate. They followed the pull and found it, hanging at the edge of a dead system, half-built but alive in intent. A structure vast enough to swallow moons, rings of autumn steel and light, arrayed like a mouth waiting for words. Beacons of certainty flared along its edges, red stars that pulsed in rhythm too exact to be natural. The shard in Juno's hands dimmed, as though smothered. Even the braid faltered, their bond dulled, lagging longer than it had since the split. Kael hissed. They're building a silencer gate. Lyra's stomach turned cold. She had heard rumors, whispers of a machine that could kill resonance not just in systems, but across constellations. This was no rumor. This was the weapon itself. Juno's voice shook. If it finishes, the constellation dies. Every radiant we've lit will go dark. Certainty given form. A pulse spread from the gate, slow but inexorable. Instruments flickered and died. The shard's light guttered. The bond itself stretched to breaking, their thoughts echoing seconds late. And then they heard it. Not sound, not song. Certainty itself, transmitted through nothing and everything at once. Erasure is not future. Erasure is fact. Your fracture carries memory. Memory is error. Error will be erased. The words seared into bone. Lyra gasped as the hollow inside her throbbed, filled not with absence but with weight, as if the autumn had found it and were pressing their certainty into the void. Kael snarled through gritted teeth. They're not speaking. They're writing themselves in us. Juno clutched the shard, her face pale. If they finish, there won't be any song left to resist them. Only silence. The breaking point. The braid screamed with dissonance. Kael's instincts burned. Strike now, cripple the gate before it's complete. Juno's voice trembled through the bond. We can't. Not yet. We'll break before we even breach it. Lyra felt them both, caught in the middle, her hollow echoing the autumn's certainty like a mirror. The shard pulsed faintly, dim but stubborn. A single note, fragile against the tide, endure. Lyra forced herself to speak past the pressure crushing her chest. We can't stop it now, but we can learn it. We can map its certainty before it's finished. Then we'll know how to break it. Kael growled. And when it is finished? Lyra met his eyes, steady despite the pain. Then we'll be the ones who decide if it sings or dies. Retreat into the veil. They pulled away under the constellation's veils, the gate's pulse pressing against them until distance thinned it. Still, its certainty lingered like a scar. Red light burned into memory, words etched into marrow. Juno collapsed in the medberth, trembling. It's more than a weapon. It's belief made into structure. They don't just want to kill resonance. They want to prove it never should have existed. Kael's hand clenched into a fist. Then we prove them wrong. Lyra closed her eyes. The shard pulsed faintly against her chest, scarred but alive. The constellation's lights still waited. Haven's song still carried. But at the edge of the dark, the silencer gate grew, and with it, the autumn's certainty. The silence before. For 3 days, Raptor-One drifted. Engines cooled to whispers, lights dimmed, weapons cold. They were a shadow inside the constellation's geometry, threading only when Juno whispered a shift, when Kael muttered left, not right on instinct, when Lyra's hollow caught a tremor in the dark. It was waiting disguised as travel, waiting for the autumn to appear, waiting for Haven to call again, waiting for the shards to name the next radiant. Kael grew restless, tearing weapons apart and reassembling them like a ritual. His muttering filled the silence. Barrels clean, chamber smooth. If the autumn bleed, they'll bleed fast. Juno sat for hours with the shard pressed to her chest, her hum wavering between lullaby and lament. Sometimes she whispered fragments from choirs long gone. Sometimes her voice cracked mid-phrase, and she fell quiet as if ashamed to have broken the line. Lyra kept herself in motion. Every system check, every scan, every recalibration was something to keep her hands moving, to distract from the hollow that pulsed deeper with each quiet hour. The silence felt like a tide pulling at her bones. Then, on the 4th day, the tide broke. The bond went cold. Juno gasped, clutching her band. Something's pulling. Not us, not the shard, everything. Kael's head snapped up, rifle in hand. Autumn? Juno's voice shook. Not fleet, not ships. A gate. The shape of the gate. It wasn't rumor. It wasn't myth. It was here. At the edge of a dead system loomed the silencer gate. Rings of autumn steel wider than moons interlocked in slow rotation, a mouth waiting for its first breath. Red beacons pulsed across its frame, each in flawless time with the others. The symmetry made Lyra's teeth ache. The shard dimmed in Juno's hands, its song muffled as if pressed beneath an ocean. Even the bond thinned, Kael's anger delayed, Juno's fear arriving seconds too late, Lyra's own thoughts echoing back hollow. Kael spat. They've built it. The silencer. One pulse, and the constellation goes dark. Juno's face paled. If they finish, it won't just mute shards. It'll erase them. Every radiant we've lit, every choir still standing gone. Lyra's throat was tight, her hollow burning. This was no weapon in theory. It was certainty shaped into steel. Certainty made flesh. A wave rippled outward from the gate. Not light, not heat. The ship's instruments flickered, then failed. The shard guttered. The bond stretched until Lyra thought it might snap. And then it spoke. Erasure is not future. Erasure is fact. Your fracture carries memory. Memory is error. Error will be erased. The words burned in marrow. Lyra felt her hollow choke, not with absence, but with weight. Kael's rage crashed through late, muted, as if already muffled by the gate. Juno sobbed, clutching the shard that no longer sang. They're not talking, Kael growled, voice raw. They're writing themselves into us. Juno shivered. It's not a voice. It's certainty. They've made belief into machinery. The pull inside. Lyra staggered to the viewport. The gate's rings rotated with slow, inevitable grace, their red pulses sinking like a colossal heartbeat. Each cycle pressed harder against her hollow, filling it with something that wasn't hers. Obey. Accept. Erasure is inevitable. The hollow screamed in silence, aching for the command stripped from her at the orchard. For a terrible moment, she wanted to let it fill her. At least then the hollow wouldn't hurt. Kael's hand gripped her shoulder, his touch late but strong. Don't give it space. Juno's weak whisper threaded in behind his. Lyra, endure, please. The shard flickered faintly, one fragile note, steady against the tide. Choosing to retreat. The braid throbbed with their fractures. Kael's demand, strike now, cripple the gate before it completes. Juno's plea, not yet, not like this, will shatter before we breach it. Lyra closed her eyes. Her hollow echoed the autumn's certainty like a mirror, but in the faint rhythm of the shard, she found something else, the memory of her own vow. I will make the call when the room goes quiet. She forced herself upright, forced her voice steady. We can't break it now, but we can learn it. We map its certainty before it's finished. Then we'll know how to kill it. Kael snarled, though his grip stayed firm. And when it is finished? Lyra met his eyes, hollow aching, shard pulsing against her heart. Then we decide if it sings or dies. The escape through shadows. They turned from the gate, slipping under the constellation's veils. The autumn's certainty pressed harder the farther they pulled, then thinned, like pressure easing from a wound. Instruments returned. The shard glowed again, faint but alive. The bond resynced, still scarred, still lagged, but theirs. Juno collapsed in the med-berth, shaking. It's worse than I thought. It doesn't just silence. It rewrites. It wants to prove resonance never existed. Kael leaned against the bulkhead, chest heaving. Then we prove it wrong. Lyra stared at the map, the faint glow of the radiance still waiting. Haven's song still carried, ragged but alive. The constellation still breathed. But at the edge of the dark, the silencer gate grew. And with it, the autumn's certainty.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to be notified about upcoming releases to the Raptor-One series, please subscribe. This has been a Bad Karma Drone production.